I find it really upsetting and disturbing. The idea that people are trading the remains of what were people, now just putting them together in this jumbled mess, and they're just now objects to decorate people's homes.
Now, you can buy anything online, can't you? Well, you might be surprised to learn that you can buy a child's skull for thousands of pounds or a wallet made of human skin. And you may be amazed to learn it's not illegal. Well, why not? And is anything being done to stop this multi-million-pound industry? I'm Faye Barker, and this is what you need to know. I'm joined by our reporter Sam Holder and producer Lois Smith, who've been looking into the trade of human remains. And just a word of warning, you may find some of what we're going to talk about disturbing. Sam, how on earth is this allowed?
There's no actual rules about selling human remains unless those remains are organs and other tissues that will be used for transplants. That is illegal. But selling bones and skulls and bits of skin that have been preserved, there's no rules on that. Stealing from a grave, breaking into a grave, disturbing remains, exhuming bones without permission, that is definitely illegal, very clearly a crime. But once those bones are out, because of a kind of strange technicality in the law, which states that human remains can't really be owned, there's no specific rules about selling them afterwards. There's nothing specific set out.
That is really quite complicated. And I guess a moral issue comes into it. I think most of us would feel quite shocked by this. But so where do they mostly come from, these human remains? You've mentioned some graveyards, but that's not the only place, is it?
So it's interesting you say the word moral, ethical is something that comes up a lot. A lot of these sellers will claim that they are selling ethical human remains because the majority of what we see on sale are ex-medical skeletons. And so the sellers will say, well, these weren't stolen from graves, they were donated to science. But that actually raises two massive ethical questions. The first is that if someone donates their body to science or to a hospital in order to teach doctors, in order to save other people's lives, they've not consented to those bones then being put on display in someone's living room on a cabinet. It's a completely different scenario. And the second big issue is that a lot of medical skeletons in the UK were originally stolen from graves, particularly during the Victorian period. Right. And even recently, we used to import skeletons from China and India, and it was a really unregulated market, and there were widespread reports of bones being stolen from graveyards or morgues. The other area that we briefly touched on before is that some of the human remains we are seeing advertised clearly have been dug up from underground. They've been buried. Perhaps they have a bit of skin still on them or hair, and you can tell from the coloration of the bones. Look, it's really disturbing, but this is actually happening. Yeah. It's being sold on Facebook and Instagram. Even within the sellers online, this is considered less ethical. Skin, perhaps, is quite hard to come across. That generally is stolen from morgues and then sold online. But really, because this is a booming market, people are looking at different places to essentially get inventory. I went to a crypt in Kent and spoke to the warden that worked there, Bryn Hughes, after they were broken into.
21 skulls had been removed from the shelves down there. And naturally that caused great concern because it's tantamount to grave robbing. These are human mortal remains.
What is the difference between bones being displayed here compared with, say, in someone's living room?
The principal difference, I suppose, is that this is holy ground. This is within church property. And for them, they would never imagine, I would think, that they would be used as ornaments.
Lois, who is selling these remains?
Yeah, so as Sam was saying, the remains are kind of on social media and also online auction houses. The people selling them are generally people who have an interest in these remains for some reason, whether they're these kind of almost death influencers. Sometimes there's an element of witchcraft. We spoke to a number of these sellers through our undercover account. a few interesting conversations. One seller tried to kind of offer a discount on a human foot. Another seller who also offered us a skull sent us some pictures privately through DM, claiming that it had been dug up to make room for a car park in France, passed on to another seller and then on to them. Quite often, these stories that come behind them, again, increase the price as well.
I mean, that sounds so extraordinary, but as part of this work, you did manage to buy some online to see, I guess, what would happen. I mean, they're not cheap, are they?
The box that we bought was an assortment. We didn't know what was going to arrive. It was £100 and it came with 5 remains in there. The price in general does vary. If the skulls and things like that do go into the thousands, and they do increase more if they're a child's skull or someone who had a disability as well.
So you mentioned many of this has been found on social media. Is anything being done about it there? Have you reached out to the companies to see if they're okay with that happening?
Yeah, so the parent company Meta of Facebook and Instagram has a policy that suggests that this shouldn't be happening on their sites. They do prohibit the sale of human remains. We have reached out to them and we haven't heard back as of yet.
But despite that, in this investigation, you've come across dozens of accounts.
Yeah, so we found at least 80 who have been actively selling in the last year.
It is extraordinary. And Sam, I mean, you unwrapped these bones on camera. How did it feel just having that, like a lucky dip of bones in front of you?
Well, look, we had to order these to prove that what we were seeing advertised online was actually happening. They came wrapped in black tissue paper with a black bow on them and a handwritten note. And to be honest, I was really, really, really not looking forward to opening them. I find it really, personally, kind of upsetting and disturbing. It's one thing coming across bones and maybe you go to a crypt, bones that have been there for a long time and bones that were there for that specific purpose. But for me, the idea that people are trading the remains of what were people and now just putting them together in this jumbled mess in a box. We've got no idea if these body parts are from the same person, where they're from, who they were. They're just objects. And for me, that was quite unsettling. We got told we received a solitary kneecap, a rib, a clavicle, and actually it turns out that it wasn't even it was advertised as a finger bone, but it was actually a toe bone.
Right.
We only found that out later when we took it to a forensic expert. So I found it quite upsetting, quite moving, because these people's entire lives had been wiped away, really, and kind of bleached when these bones had been bleached.
Yeah.
And they're just now objects to decorate people's homes.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Why are people buying them? Is a lot of it just for decoration, or
So some of it is decoration. Some of it is witchcraft and black magic. I don't know how seriously people are taking these things. There are self-described Satanists who like having these objects. Sometimes the bones particularly, are turned into art. Or jewellery. We saw lots of necklaces made of teeth. There are skulls that are made into cups. Human skin is used to make wallets.
that one?
And
The wallets made from human skin. I must admit, is the one that when I was, talking to you guys about this, I just thought, what is going on?
yeah, it actually haunted
And they
my
cost-
dreams.
And they cost thousands, don't they?
Yeah, that's about
If you want one.
£5,000
Gosh.
for a skin wallet. Because it's rare, because it's really hard to preserve human skin. We also saw a tattoo for sale.
Wow.
Yeah, I think, we don't like to generalise, but I would generalise that the vast, vast majority of people in this country would probably find this quite an abhorrent trade. But there is a thriving and growing market for this. Something that would have been impossible to buy really before, like incredibly difficult to buy. You would have had to know someone selling these things. Is now really easy because people go on social media. And one expert suggested that there's been about a 500% increase in sales over the past 5 years.
Wow. And as we said earlier, it's like you can get anything, can't you, online these days? I mean, is anything being done to stop this? We've got into that difficult territory of how legal or illegal it is. That's obviously a very grey area. But is anything being done to actually, stop this happening?
Well, we spoke with a group called Bubeo, who Lois originally got in contact with. It was Lois who began this investigation. They are a group of essentially bone experts and academics. They work in archaeology in all different fields, and they are calling for a change in the law, which outright bans it. They make what seems like quite a logical point that the trade in ivory is regulated post-death. So once the elephant's been killed, even now the ivory can't be traded. They want to see something similar brought in for human remains. And
it is surprising, Lois, isn't it, that hasn't already happened? I think most of us would just assume, well, you won't be allowed to do that. Of course you can't do that. And then it's like, oh, yeah, maybe you can.
Exactly. And I think because it's kind of online now, it's become so much more accessible. People are kind of starting to realise that actually this is a thing. And as Sam says, the popularity has just skyrocketed according to all the experts that we've spoken to.
And I mean, as part of the investigation, we had to obviously check it out. You ordered those bones, and they've been looked at. They were genuine. I believe possibly from a medical skeleton, were they?
Yeah. So when we spoke to the forensic expert, he suggested that the signs, the texture of the bone, and also the fact that the vertebra had little holes drilled into it, which suggests that it was at some point a medical specimen, or he believes that it's most in line with that.
But I suppose, as you've already said, if someone had donated their remains for medical research, you don't want it turning up in someone's post box. Big question now, what do we do with those remains now? We've sort of done this research, done the reports. What are the plans there?
So we have spoken with an expert who doesn't want to be named, but that's fine, who has agreed to take the bones. And this is what normally happens, say, if a building project digs up some earth and finds some human skeletons in it. An archaeologist or another expert will come in and oversee it, and then they take the bones and either rebury them or store them in a museum alongside other bones that have been found. So that's what will happen to these bones, and they'll be kind of given a proper respectful send-off.
Yeah, that sounds a good thing. Well, look, Sam and Lois, thank you both so much for taking us through that. Quite a grim investigation, but extraordinary as well. So thank you. Well, to watch more of our investigations, do head to itv.com/news and our YouTube channel. Until our next quick briefing, thanks for joining us.